Ah, hey my good friend, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today I am very excited to be up here on my favorite windy mountain road with the all-new turbocharged 2017 Honda Civic Si Coupe. Now, the last time I was up here with the Honda Civic Si, it was the last generation of four-door, and I had a lot of wonderful things to say about that car. It was a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to find out how this compares to the old Honda Civic, especially with this new turbocharged powertrain, but also cars like the Volkswagen GTI. All right, my friends, before we get out on the test drive, we got to talk about styling just a little bit, because this does have quite a unique look from the rest of the Civic line. And this starts right here with the face, where we've got a very unique gloss black grille. Not the chrome, not the traditional bars you see on some of the other Civics. Very similar here to some of the sport models out there, but it does have a slightly different look to it. Big Honda logo there in the center. The headlights on this, a projector style headlight with a daytime running lamp built in. Down below in the lower fascia, a little bit more aggressive down there on that lower splitter area, and we do have fog lights here on the Si. As we come around the corner here, this has a unique 18-inch wheel and very sticky summer tires, which we'll get to here when we start talking about handling. Coming around the back end of the Civic Si, you see that we've got here the coupe, and it's got the traditional Honda Civic Coupe line that we've known here for about a year. Very interesting curvature going on here. Some nice lines down there on the lower rocker that really tie into something quite unique. You don't see this car coming and going down the road in any other brands out there. There just really is nothing else like it. We've got a nice big wing on here, typical of the Honda Civic Si. And one feature down here in the lower fascia that I really do like what they've done here on this latest generation is this center exhaust. And you'll also see that on the higher level Civic Type R, although that's going to be slightly different in configuration. That is going to be the signature of the high-performance Civic line, and I like the way it looks. It really ties in well with what they've done with that deck lid, the taillights, LED taillights by the way. And it doesn't quite have the big giant jet outlets that you see on some of the other Civics down there in that lower fascia. It's just a little bit more subtle in that way, oddly enough, but I think it's well balanced, and it really does look good from back here. The interior of the Civic Si is quite dressed up from the standard Civic. There's a lot of special trims in here, starting with a carbon fiber finish you see across the dash that looks very convincingly real. It's very attractive to look at. And the second big thing they've done in here is the red accent stitching. It's here on the steering wheel, down here on the console. You're going to find it on the shift boot. You've got the special shift knob here. And these sports seats, man, these are comfortable, grippy, grabby sports seats here with cloth. They're heated. Again, we've got the red accent stitching in them, and the Si logo's right there. They not only look good, but they feel good. They're manually adjustable, so they're not power, but in this price range, I think that's appropriate, and you can adjust them quite well to get them right where you want them. And the way they're designed, even if you're a larger guy or a gal, if you're, maybe 200 pounds, maybe a little bit over that, you're still going to be able to get yourself comfortable here, unlike, say, the Recaro seats you're going to find in the Ford Focus RS or the ST. The steering wheel here in front of me has a nice comfortable feel. It's not the flat bottom D-shaped steering wheel that you do find in some sports coupes and some sports sedans, but it's still a very well done steering wheel at that. Through it you can see an instrument cluster that's fully digital here, and you can customize it with any number of different screens. There's a turbo boost, there's an acceleration and deceleration, there's a G-force, there's of course the trip computer, and it's very easy to read. And when you switch it up to the sport mode, it changes it up just a little bit. So it's very well done. Sort of a high-end item here for a car of this price range. I'm pretty impressed with that. Materials in here, extremely high quality, top of class, always has been from Honda. It continues. The switchgear has a nice high quality tactile feel. Here on the center stack, you've got the 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system. You've got your HVAC controls below. And down here on the center console, you've got a few switches along with the 6-speed shifter. When it comes to storage here, there's a lot of it to be had. There's a nice platform right up here on top, perfect for your phone or device, and you can plug that into a USB if you want to. There's a little hole down here in the center, and it goes down below. And down below, there's a nice platform down there you can also use for your phone. And down here on this side, there's a little bit of a cubby that you can lay that down in there if you choose to do that. Down here in the rear of the center console, you have this kind of slide back armrest, and then it tilts open, And down here, you've got a really deep well for storage. A lot of items can fit down here. It's uncommonly large for a car of this class. And the cup holders are buried down deep in here as well. So even if you've got a tall cup like from the gas station, it's not going to interfere with your shifter. You can have big, huge drinks here and still do some pretty vigorous driving. I really like what they've done. And there is a USB port, a charging port down in there as well. So there's almost SUV-like utility going on with the storage and all of the charging that's available here. There are a couple things here that I don't like that much. One of those is the fact that you've got the electronic parking brake instead of the standard parking brake. And that really gets more to driving because the parking brake tends to hang up sometimes. It doesn't always disengage the way it's supposed to, and it takes a couple of tries to get it done. And the same goes for the start switch. When you start the engine, sometimes you gotta press it twice. Sometimes turning it off, you have to press it twice. So the electronics are a little glitchy in that way. The part that really surprised me about the Civic Coupe is the fact that sitting back here in the back seat isn't a punishment. Now, most coupes traditionally have always been cramped and difficult. Now, granted, getting in and out of here isn't that easy, but once you're here, there's actually plenty of legroom. And as always, these front seats are set for my height, about 5'9". And as you can see here, I've got about 2 inches ahead of my knees here for legroom, and I'm not touching the roof. I've got about 1 inch of headroom. Granted, it's less you're going to find in the four-door sedan, but I'm not completely uncomfortable and feeling claustrophobic back here. And also surprising is the fact that we've got 3 across seating here, 3 seat belts, so this is a 5-seater, not a 4-seater. Now, this rear seat does fold down in a 60-40 split, so you can get long things into the trunk. The trunk space itself, not the largest in the class, but you're going to be able to compare that to some of the hatches out there, like say the Golf GTI, for instance. Obviously, if you get the 4-door Civic Si, you're going to have a slightly larger trunk back there. Under this trunk, in this particular car, however, no spare tire, just an inflator. So if you happen to slice the tire open, you're going to have to call it a tow truck. When it comes to scoring this interior overall, though, I'm extremely impressed. These are very comfortable chairs, both front and rear. Ergonomics, design, storage, quality materials. You can just spend all day in this car, whether you're in the front seat or the back seat, and you're never going to get tired of being here. It's just extremely well done, as I've come to expect from Honda. So the interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. Under the hood here of the Honda Civic Si is something completely new for this model, a turbocharged Earth Dreams. That is a marketing term that only could have been written in Japan. Earth Dreams turbocharged direct injected engine. Now, good news here is its 205 horsepower is identical to the last generation Civic. And even though this engine's quite smaller, it actually has more torque. That torque comes on lower in the rev range and it lasts longer across the rev band. So they tell us it actually has quite a bit more usable torque than before, because that old engine, you used to have to really rev it out to get any horsepower or torque all the way to the high end. Here, all that horsepower and that torque down lower in the mid-range. And with the 6-speed manual here, the EPA rates it at 28 mpg city, 38 mpg highway, and 32 mpg combined. Higher mpg. So the big question is, how does it go? Whew. Well, it revs out, hits the rev limiter really easy, right off the line. Not a lot of power, as you might expect with a small turbocharged engine, but in fairness, the last Civic Si didn't really have a lot of power off the line either. You had to rev that engine out high to get to the horsepower. Same thing here. The difference is, as you sink into this thing mid-range and the rev range, you get a lot more torque. And that torque is right there, provided you keep this engine cooking, just like the old Civic. So my big takeaway right off the bat is I think speed and power here are relatively equal. The difference here is that the power curves are different. Both engines, you have to wind them out. You really have to turn up the flames. You got to turn up the fire, put on the coal. You really have to get the power out of these engines. But the difference being, here you've got a power curve that you can work with, and I find around town actually works a little better for everyday driving. Out here on a windy mountain road, we've got about the same fun level. It's just kind of a different deal. One thing that is the same between this Civic and the old Civic is the metal shift knob here. This thing is hot as this summer, man. I swear by the end of this week, I'm gonna have that shift pattern burned into my palm. It's metal, man. It's cool though. It's one of those things. But back to the driving character here. With the 6-speed manual here, this is an engine that's a lot of fun because it's free revving, as I said. It's extremely refined, and that's really a good thing because with it being as small as it is and working as hard as it is, you almost might expect it to be rough and harsh. But it's sewing machine smooth. And you can just rev it out and listen to it all day. You never get tired of hearing this engine thrum under your foot. And like the old Civic, you know, you got to keep those revs up. And here you have to anticipate just a little bit more because there is a slight bit of turbo lag. That is to be expected, but it just really works well, just like the old one. So am I happy with this new powertrain? Yeah, I think so. I was happy with the old one. They're just something that you really have to work at to enjoy. Now, fuel economy. Small turbocharged engines are thirsty. They do really great on EPA testing, and that's why they have to go to these things now so they can meet the new regs. But when it comes to everyday driving, they're thirsty, especially if you get on the boost. Here, I ended up with 26 mpg, quite a bit lower than the 32 mpg. So when it comes to rating this powertrain, I'm pretty happy with it. It's got roughly the same amount of power, I think a little bit better drivability around town, let alone out here on a windy mountain road. While it did lose a little bit of that efficiency that you might expect for having gone to the smaller engine, it's still a hoot. So powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now handling, the next big test. How does this compare to the old Civic? Well, pretty big shoes to fill because the old Civic, no complaints there when it came to handling. Now, we've got an improved multi-link rear suspension, and on this new Civic, we've got adjustable dampers, controllable down here with the sport mode. And while I really can't say there's a huge difference between the sport mode and the normal mode, it's discernible, but it's not a huge, big, abrupt difference. Even on sport mode, the stiffest setting, this thing never gets harsh. And a lot of cars up here, high performance cars, I bring them up here to this windy mountain road that has rough pavement, and some of them just get really rough. They lose their composure, they beat you to death. Not here, yet this thing still is bubblegum when it comes to grip. It's predictable, it's grippy, these tires and these wheels, just a wonderful combination for a predictable, sticky feel. That's great, man. And the steering, well, it's as good as it gets. It's got good feel, it's perfectly weighted, it's really matched well with the suspension. And tie it all into a chassis that's stiff and solid and just never feels less than its price. Well, I'm very happy. 5 out of 5 stars. Now it's time to talk about the infotainment system here. This is the last generation, not the most recent version of Honda's infotainment systems, which means this is the one that still does not have a volume knob or a tuning knob. Now, a lot of you out there don't understand why I bitch about that, but it's a big thing to me. Here what we have is we have a touch-sensitive screen that has a slide bar that's touch-sensitive for your volume. There is a touch-sensitive and a button-pressing volume control over here. Neither one of them work that intuitively. Sometimes it takes multiple presses. You really sort of have to push and slide to get it done. It's annoying when all it would take is a really quick twist of a knob. Same for tuning. Instead of regular tuning, like a knob, even a slide, you've got buttons here. You've got to tune your stations one by pressing buttons. Annoying. Annoying. Okay, that sucks. And it really does spoil what's otherwise a very good audio system. The sound quality is very good. Another thing that's kind of a low spot here is visibility. Because the screen isn't shrouded, when the sun gets on it, there's a lot of glare sometimes, and it's sometimes hard to see in direct sunlight. Add that to menus that aren't that intuitive to use. It takes a lot of hunting and pecking to get around. And climate controls, something as simple as the fan, you actually have to press the button here to get to climate, and it doesn't always respond the first time. So once you press that button, you get your fan controls, then you have to adjust your fan. That's very annoying to me. The fact that you don't have a knob or buttons, you have to use the audio, and it's buried in menus to get to where just to adjust your fan. Now, while I have had a lot of negative things to say about this system, it does have one great feature, and that's the backup camera and the lane watch system. The lane watch is a great feature. When you turn your right signal on, it lights up the entire right lane right here on the screen using a camera there on the bottom of your right-hand mirror. Being able to just sort of see immediately on that screen everything going on in the right lane right next to you, even in your blind spot, that's something that every car in the world should have, and not every Honda has it. Feature content, pretty good. We've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That's always a big thing. Bottom line though is when it comes to scoring this system, great audio and a great camera system don't overcome poor controls, hard controls as well as menus as well, and low visibility. This infotainment system gets 3 out of 5 stars. On the topic of quality, something very important to me, if you watch any of my videos, you know I really pick apart a lot of the little stuff. And when it comes to Honda, it's really hard to do that because they've been known for a long time not only being reliable, but being very well put together, and this car really is no exception to that. Paint finish is very good, body panel fit and alignment, excellent. The interior, top of class in terms of materials, design, overall feel of quality, and this thing is solid as a brick. Now, some of the electronics were a little bit glitchy here and there. That could be a single car issue, but there's anecdotal evidence out there that some of these newer Hondas tend to have a little bit higher level of electronic glitches, and I had a couple here with this. The other thing being that the warranty coverage here on the Honda 336, not the best in class. Some would say you don't need it, but either way, we still come out at 5 stars for quality. When it comes to safety, this is an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, very nice in this class, and that's because it gets good in all their crash tests, including that brutal small overlap crash. But it is not a Top Safety Pick Plus because headlights are now part of that measurement, and these headlights actually have a poor rating at night when it comes to how well they light your way. So without those headlights, we're very, very safe here, but at night, well, you know, it could stand for some improvement. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the 2017 Honda Civic Si. I think they've done a dynamite job on this car. I like it just as much as the last generation Honda Civic Si, and perhaps just a little bit more. I like the styling, I like the character, and I really do like this coupe. Not very many coupes available out there, and of course you can get the 4-door. Now, I haven't driven the 4-door yet, but I imagine very, very similar to the overall character of this. I do like this well enough that it goes on my I'd buy it list for 2017, the highest honor here at Test Driven TV. And I got to be honest with you folks, having been a Volkswagen guy most of my life, if I were shopping this against a GTI, I would have a very tough time. Or in the case of the 4-door, against the Jetta GLI, those cars are really top of class in both cases. I'd have a tough time, but I got to tell you, at this price, just under $25,000 as tested here, I think this is a dynamite value. So I put value at 5 stars. When we put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Plus the I'd buy it list. Very good. I'm Sam Hamart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Woo! All right, man, I could do this all freaking day. Anyway, my friends, if you enjoyed the test drive you just saw, as much as I have, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the big round logo right there because we do this all the time. Or if you just want to see our latest test drive, click there on the big square. Either way, stay tuned.